This is Lansing Project 2026 podcast. For the people, by the people, Lansing Project 2026 is a framework for building collective, local resilience that starts by meeting everyone's basic needs. Our vision counters the division and destruction of Project 2025 by bringing neighbors together to strengthen connections and structure that serve communities. Lansing Project 2026 is based on the shared belief that we can build the world we want to live in and thrive together. It starts here, it starts now. Join the movement.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the second episode of the Lansing Project 2026 podcast. I'm Tanya, and I'm here with my co-host, Jerry Norris of The Fledge, as well as our special guest today, Chantel Spears. Yay! So Project 2026, by way of background, is based on an assessment of basic needs. We are using a tool developed by the United Way called the ALICE threshold to determine basic needs. Jerry, what does ALICE stand for?
ALICE stands for Asset Limited, Income Constrained, and Employed. And it basically is the cost of living for the 6 basic needs, which are transportation, technology, healthcare, housing, food, and childcare.
And since we're here to really understand the basic needs in our area, we are going to use the ALICE assessment to help us get a better understanding of what those are. So the latest data actually shows that about 50% of the folks in the Lansing area live below the ALICE threshold, meaning it's challenging to meet their basic needs. So in addition to using the ALICE threshold, we're also going to be grounding our understanding of basic needs through interviews with experts, including those with lived experience, and through continued dialogue with all of you listening. So we look forward to your comments and ideas. So today, we're going to do a deep dive into one of those 6 categories, which is housing. Housing is obviously a complex topic. As was stated in the Project 2026 description, housing encompasses more than just a roof over one's head. It includes safe, stable, affordable shelter that provides dignity, security, and a foundation for all other aspects of life. Housing is where we rest, where we raise families, build community, and establish roots. And when housing is treated as a commodity rather than a right, people are forced to choose between shelter and basic needs and other basic needs, creating cycles of instability that ripple through entire communities. So with that background, Jerry, tell us about housing in Lansing.
Well, I think I'll start out sounding like a real estate agent for a second and just state some things like the average house in Lansing costs around $154,000. If you watch Zillow, you can see that bounce up and down from week to week quite a bit. You start to go into, how much rent is, and a couple of stats that I think are important is that number one, the rent in Lansing has increased by 25% in the last 4 years. The number of people, in the ALICE threshold, one of the recommendations is that you stick around 30% of your income should go towards housing. And 49.2% of the people in Lansing spend more than 30% of their income on rent or mortgage or whatever. And what I think can be even worse is that 27% of the people spend more than half of their money on rent. So the rent is too damn high. Look for links when we summarize the show and posted all of that. Look for rents for when rent is too damn high, has their meetings, get involved with them. It's really a great organization, and I bet you Chantel might tell us a little bit more about it.
Yeah.
Or no?
Yeah,
Maybe?
I'd be happy to.
That'd be awesome. I think a couple of other statistics that are important is that the city, the officials, I don't actually know who does this, but there's a point in time count of the number of people that are out on the streets, and they do it every January, and it's just everybody tries to count whoever they can to see how many unhoused people are out there. And this year, I haven't been able to get a stable number yet because it hasn't been officially published, but it's estimated to be 12 to 1,500 people. And the city of Lansing commissioned a study in 2023 where they found that there were about 2,100 people that experienced homelessness throughout the year. So they might not have been chronic, they might have been couch to couch, it might have been for a couple of weeks or whatever. And then the other thing is that the Lansing School District last year published that 604 of their students were unhoused. So that 604 surprised me, that there's so many kids out there. And another statistic is that there's 4,200, 4,300 units that are available right now, but off the market. That somebody is sitting on them, they're red tagged, they're whatever reason it is, but there is enough open units right now to house everybody. And it just is kind of weird to me that everybody is not housed. And you had another statistic that I thought the HUD, the Section 8, the vouchers.
Yeah, so there's the Housing Choice Voucher Program. There's 800 people on that waiting list, and so it's like, and it's kind of a crazy process because you have to wait to get on the waiting list for them, and you can be on that waiting list for years.
Yeah, and I'm going to ask you a couple questions later about some things, but I can't remember where I transition again. So now that's pretty much what I have. Yeah.
I think we introduce our special guest next.
Okay. Well, what I want to hear is Chantel's story. So I would like you to introduce yourself and tell us whatever you want to tell us.
Sure. So I'm Chantel Spears. I'm actually from Ann Arbor. I grew up in Ann Arbor, but I came to Lansing fairly recently, a couple years ago. Now what I'm doing is I'm pretty heavily involved in the Rent is Too Damn High. So it's a union around here. It's a local union. Our ultimate goal is free housing. So we're a pretty neat tenant union and we have different parts of what we do. So there's a group of people where they're like trying to unionize people in their buildings. Let's say that you live in a really crappy apartment, you have a crappy landlord. They'll try and unionize people within those buildings. What I do though is I do a lot of work with the homeless union. So I'm one of the leaders of the homeless union, and we try and reach out to people with lived experience and unionize them. We have different teams within the homeless union. So I'm on a team where what we're doing is we're trying to secure more funding for transitional housing. And transitional housing will include the vouchers that we had talked about. And it will also include some money for shelters. Because like, as I said, that we have so many homeless people. You're saying 1,500, it's hard to get a stable estimate, maybe 2,100, but our shelters certainly can't take that many people. Right. And so that's what that is. And we have another team that what they're trying to do is they're trying to implement a program that's been done in other states where they train people who are experiencing homelessness to develop the skills that they need to sort of fix those red tag houses so that they can live in them. And then we have another team that's working on trying to get a safe parking program. So somewhere where people can live in their cars and be safe and maybe have access to laundry and showers if that would be available.
Mm.
Yeah.
So before you were, do you want to talk any about your experience in Ann Arbor before you came here and
Sure.
that?
Well, sure. So I mean, I grew up in Ann Arbor. So I became homeless in 2019. I had lost my career and done a little bit of couch surfing, which usually doesn't work out, and ultimately moved to Arizona to live with my best friend. and then he died 6 weeks later unexpectedly. So then I lived in my car. And I primarily lived in my car in Ann Arbor, but it became unsafe because, I lived in the Meyer parking lot, and you can live in super center parking lots when you're homeless, but it's really not safe. So there was a man who just started watching me sleep. He ended up stalking me, almost abducted me. So I moved to Lansing, just because there was an opening at the shelter. I ended up moving out, living in my car pretty much.
Did you spend a winter in your car?
Oh, absolutely. So I was homeless for 4 years. I lived in my car. There were a lot of times when I didn't have enough money to run my car for the heat. So what I did to survive is that I would take a blanket and put it over my head, and you can trap in a lot of heat that way. And for the first couple of years that I was homeless, I didn't even have a winter jacket.
I
Thank
can't
you for
believe
that.
that.
So
I mean,
you
I
get a
can't believe
blanket,
it.
you put it over your head. That's how you do it.
So, what do you think, Tanya?
Well, I think you mentioned that your friend had passed away as sort of a triggering event
Mhm.
to being unhoused. And I'm curious if you have, like, if you can share some of your thoughts on what the causes are of homeless, like the fundamental underlying causes of the fact that we have people who don't have homes.
Honestly, I think it's a lot of wealth inequality. We have a lot of people who are hoarding money. So when you have people who get into positions like I did, where, oops, your roommate died, well, then what are you going to do? If you don't have that social safety net of a family that will take care of you, because my family was okay with me going out on the streets. They had no problem with it. They don't have a lot of empathy. If you don't have that social safety net, then you're going to be right out on the streets, right? So I think it's just that there's a tremendous amount of wealth inequality, because it's just hard to, what are you going to do if something unexpected happens? I know a lot of people who have went homeless because of house fires or domestic violence and stuff like that. So there's a lot of triggering events. They just tend to be these unexpected disasters, and there's no safety net.
Just recognizing how close anyone can be to that, right? It's one tragedy, it's one just unexpected experience, but that's bigger than what you can manage,
Oh,
right?
absolutely.
And so just important that we remember that.
I think it's in, when you start to talk about that wealth disparity, you look at the landlords in Lansing, and a lot of them are from out of town.
Mhm.
You've got the Lansing Housing Commission sold 212 houses to SK Investment, who was a Miami-based private equity firm that's really a foreign based Israeli firm for private equity. And I think that 10% of the landlords are just they don't touch the property. They don't come here. You see rates where landlords have, for every property they have evicted at least one person from each property, and in some cases, even 2 to 3 people. So, and then they're sitting on these empty units, and it's just rich people doing rich people shit.
Mhm.
So, let's talk more about causes. Have you ever been evicted, or tell us some other stories of people that you've worked with, people that that you're friends with even. How did they become unhoused?
I don't have any evictions personally. I'm trying to think. As I said, I've met some people, house fires, domestic violence. Sometimes maybe people lose their jobs. They can't make ends meet. Just that seems to sum up a lot of it. I know people do go homeless because of, deaths like mine, but I personally haven't met anyone yet like that, but it does happen.
How many, I want to talk a little bit, because I think people think, oh, I'm going to use words that other people use for stigma,
Sure.
They're just bums, they need to get a job, stuff like that. How many people that are unhoused have jobs?
A tremendous amount of them. I think statistics show, I want to say, I'm off the top of my head, I've seen the number of 60%, but there's a tremendous amount of people who are working. But it's also important to remember that a lot of people are unhoused because they have disabilities. They can't work, you know? So that's the case with me. I have a disability. I've never actually worked really full time in my entire life. I've always been sort of disabled, but there's a lot of people with disabilities out there who can't even work.
One more quick one. The other thing you hear a lot is, you know, there's a substance use disorder. There's the getting called addict or whatever. And, you know, I think that, you know, I've got a lot to say on that subject in general, but what do you have to say about that? Like in response to that?
I mean, I wouldn't necessarily call that a causal factor, and it's really hard. A lot of people get out there on the streets, and they develop a substance use disorder because it's incredibly difficult to live outside. So, I mean, I know some people who have used meth just to stay up because they're afraid of being, you know, sleeping outside. So they think, well, I can stay up and protect myself if something happens. I've met someone who used meth for that reason. I personally never got into substances. A lot of people don't use substances who are homeless. In fact, most of them don't. But there are a number who do. But like, there's also a number of people who have housing who use substances, and the difference is that they have money and housing, and we don't. So,
Yeah, I've met quite a few people that have come in when we're a warming shelter or rent is too damn high. A lot of people that are unhoused will come in, and they'll just tell me stories. And, you know, I didn't drink until I became unhoused. I didn't use until I became unhoused. And I think that, you know, is one of the things that people will be surprised about, right?
yeah.
Very much so.
What about people, that didn't, like they're not, I don't even know what stereotypical unhoused person is. And that's what I'm trying to ask. Is there a stereotype of people that become unhoused?
Yeah, I think there is definitely a stereotype. I mean, that's why when I know a lot about the psychology of prejudice, because I have a PhD ABD in psychology. But the number one the stereotype of them tends to be that they're really mentally ill. They use substances, they're lazy, and they're dishonest. So not only are we calling them, you know, mentally ill and they use substances, but we actually think that they're terrible people. That's actually part of the stereotype, that they're dishonest, that they're horrible people, and that they're very incompetent, right? That's another one. These people can't do anything. They're not very smart. They're dumb. They can't do anything worthwhile. But the reason why we stereotype people like that, it's evolutionarily adaptive. If we can attribute your suffering to internal aspects like your mental illness, your character flaws, your substance use, as opposed to something external, right? People are hoarding wealth, you don't have the family support, someone died. Then what we can do is we can blame your circumstances on you, and we can justify our indifference to your suffering. So that's the psychological mechanism underlying the prejudice against the homeless population. And that's the purpose that the stereotypes serve.
And we don't have to take responsibility either.
Yeah, we don't have to help you because it's your fault. So why should we help you? Pick yourself up by your bootstraps.
Yep.
So, you know, I think that I carry $2 bills around in what would have been my ashtray of my truck. And every time I stop and I have the opportunity when somebody has a sign, I just give them a $2 bill because I just think it's fun, and I hope they actually, is this real? Can I spend this? And they remember me. And so I come back and it's like a $2 bill guy now. The people that are standing there, I think everybody calls them, oh, that homeless person was on the corner with a cardboard sign. Do you think all of them are homeless? And do you think all homeless people do that?
No.
Like, is that yeah.
It's a good question. I've actually met some housed people who they don't have a lot of income, and they'll go out and do that. They'll they'll hold up the sign. Certainly not all homeless people do it. In fact, it's probably the minority of people who do it. And it's mainly done as like a last resort. Like, I desperately need money. How can I get it? Here I go. A lot of people consider it really embarrassing and dehumanizing to do that. So
Well, and I'll share, there's a common refrain that the people who are holding up the signs actually live these like amazing lives
Oh.
together, and that it's because they cannot work and stand outside in the cold and the rain with their sign because they're the ones beating the system.
Mm.
Yeah, I've heard that from multiple
Mhm.
people around here, that it's all a ruse and that they have amazing lives
Yeah.
behind the scenes.
I know that a lot of people, if you're watching and you live in Lansing, you know what it's like to be poor.
Yeah.
And poor is tough. And I'd rather have a job than be,
Yep.
live in poverty,
Yep.
because the job is much more easier than the 24-hour, 7 days a week job of being poor. I want to go back to, I want to just close out that cardboard thing, because I think that a lot of people need to hear about this subject. I get asked a lot, do you think that I should give money to people that have that cardboard sign? How would you answer that?
Yeah, I absolutely give them money, but you need to go beyond that. So that will help them today. It will help them go get a coffee to feed themselves or do something to make them comfortable. It will help make them comfortable, but it's not going to do much to actually get them housing. So yeah, you should go out and make them comfortable because it's extremely wretched out there, but you should also take a step further and call your representatives, tell them to put more money towards housing and things like that. If you really want to help the housing situation, you have to do that more.
Do you think people should be scared that, they're just going to go buy drugs or alcohol or cigarettes or Oreos or whatever the hell we judge them for buying?
They might do that, and that's okay because that makes them comfortable. How else are they going to be, comfortable? Maybe they'll have a beer. What's wrong with that? What if I took the $5 that you gave me and I went and I had a beer and I relieved a little bit of stress?
Yeah.
That will happen. Or I might take it and buy a coffee and some food. Who knows? But don't worry about it. It's their choice, Don't judge them for it.
I always say don't keep score.
Yeah.
What if you help a young mother feed her kid?
Right.
So isn't one kid and 99 others that did something else? It's worth it, right?
Absolutely.
So,
Can we
yeah.
just a little bit, we described the sort of 6 characteristics of basic needs. But we talked before about how intertwined all of those things are and
Yes.
how being unhoused or just having housing instability is so integrated with so many other pieces of meeting basic needs. Is there anything you would like to elaborate on or would like people to know about? It's not just being unhoused, but there's these other things that come with it.
Sure. So like being unhoused, your housing is your secure base from which to function, right? So you have a shower, you can go shower, you can go to work. It makes holding a job so much easier. I know a lot of people who are unhoused, they keep jobs, but it's so much easier to keep a job and function when you have a secure base from which to function, when you have safe, stable housing. It's in even like food and like nutrition, right? So like when you're out there living on the streets, you don't have a fridge, you don't have a stove. So you're in kind of like food chaos, so you can't
Yes.
cook yourself a meal. What are you going to eat? You're so much more restricted in what kind of foods and diets you're going to eat. That's a big one. Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about Dietrich Park, or we could probably almost talk about any,
Sure.
encampment that there's been in this city. That's why do you think that, why do they get swept?
Why do
Why do you think that happens?
Yeah, because people are completely unempathetic to the homeless population. A good thing to do would be to read the comments on a lot of those news articles, and they'll just scream out the stereotypes that our society has. Go get a job, these lazy people, you can't mooch off the system forever, that type of thing, right? There's a lot of misunderstandings, not a lot of empathy. And it takes a lot to change people's attitudes. It's not enough just to educate them. It takes more. It takes interpersonal interaction. It takes so much. So
Do you think that, so I was trying to get to a question earlier when I
Sure.
was talking about stereotypes that I sort of want to come back to. Who were the people before they became unhoused? Like, were any of them ever grandmas? Were they sisters, brothers, kids?
All of that.
Mhm.
Yeah, they were people, and they're still people when they're unhoused. They continue to be someone's sister, someone's grandma, someone's mother. But I think the world just forgets about that.
And do you think that, do you think there's a lot of kids out there saying, I can't believe my grandma's unhoused? How dare her do that? Or do you think they were shocked? Like, grandma was probably housed at some point and whatever happened, she got hip surgery and couldn't work anymore and got kicked out of her house or whatever.
Yeah, I'd say there's a mix. Like when I see it, like there are some families who maintain sort of a good, secure, healthy attachment, okay relationship with their unhoused family members. They do what they can to help them. But then there's other families, like mine, where it's like, I just became Satan when I became unhoused, just an untouchable, nasty thing. Even though I'm still the same Chantel, like nothing changed, I was unhoused. But that was the only difference. So I think it's a mix.
Yes.
Oh, I was just feeling that for a second.
So what are shelters? Let's talk about those for a little
Sure.
bit. Do you have any opinions on?
So many opinions. Where
Tell us
I
about
could
shelters.
I could probably do an entire podcast on shelters. I think, they're absolutely shitty. That's shitty, 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 shitty. Shitty. So they're completely abysmal. They're not really good for getting you back up on your feet. They're so like it's, for example, I'm a published sleep health expert. So for example, communal living is really bad for your sleep health. As you can imagine, if you're trying to sleep in a room with 30 other women in bunk beds, it's not going to work out very nice. There's differences between people of when they sleep and how long they sleep. Shelters don't accommodate that. And in general, shelters don't accommodate disabilities in general. A lot of them are faith-based, so they'll try and impose their faith on other people. So it's not a very friendly space for people who are not Christian. And it's also not a very friendly space for the LGBTQ community because our one local shelter, the Mission, so they make you go to chapel. They've called homosexuality unnatural love. They've done a lot of transphobic things. They've literally told some people that they can't come to the shelter because they're transgender. So I think shelters are horrible places and they need a lot of improvement. The only upside to shelters are that, like, I will use myself for instance, like I was sleeping outside, it became really unsafe, I was getting stalked, so where do I go? Okay, now I'm going to go to a shelter where they won't accommodate my disability, so I become completely non-functional, right? So that's basically the story of shelters, is that they're kind of a necessary evil, but I think that there is a lot of need for improvement with the shelters. I think they're absolutely wretched.
When I think about, and thank you for that, because I think that, you see the Mission downtown and Jesus Saves, and since 1909 or whatever the heck it is, right?
I thought it was a lot longer than that.
Well, maybe since 1736.
1736.
But every time I saw like their founding date, I was always thinking, you're not very good at your job then.
Yeah.
But their job really isn't to end homelessness.
Right.
It's actually a perverse profit motive
Mhm.
to get more money. I don't think the celebration of now we have a bigger shelter, like we're growing, business is
Yeah.
great. How does this,
Thank
why
goodness.
did we work like this, right?
Yeah.
Why does our system reward? To me, it's the biggest failure that they could have.
Yeah, it's true.
Like-
Well, and it's a bigger failure though, right? It's a failure for all of us. Like, yes, the shelters
yeah.
are not doing the things that they should be, but as Chantal mentioned earlier, right, we all as a society have allowed this to continue and look to those things as, well, we fixed it because we funded a shelter without being engaged in the real work that it takes to change that system.
Oh yeah, I think every single one of us has a responsibility to do something
Mhm.
and to stop doing something that's actually contributing to that cause.
Mhm.
And we all should be reflecting on what that is or learning what that is And to me, I think it starts with the empathy. It
Mhm.
starts with, it starts with a smile, a true, sincere smile, not a fake one because you're scared.
Yeah.
And it starts with buying that cup of coffee or something.
Yep.
But these are people. These are real damn people that, you could be next. Lose your job and
Mhm.
let your landlord double your rent and, get in a fight with your mom.
Mhm.
You're done. You're unhoused.
Well, and let's throw that out. Like for our audience, Chantel, what would you like people to do differently? If you could ask, hey, everybody, Jerry mentioned smile and be genuine, like see people as human.
Sure.
Please share with us your thoughts on that.
Yeah, like so it's like treat them like people, treat people experiencing homelessness like the people that they are and extend your empathy towards them and everything else, but also you need to become active. So I've mentioned before, call your reps, tell them to put more money towards housing. It's stuff like that, really. If you have the money to donate towards housing, do that. But I think you really need to get sort of politically active.
And are there things we've all acknowledged that the system is structured in such a way that it is not incentivized to solve the problem of not enough people having homes? Are there specific things when you talk about talking to your legislator or just anything in terms of systems change that you would suggest that people advocate for who care about this?
So I think you're tapping into like what's the bigger problem behind that. And again, I'm going to go back to that. There's just a couple of billionaires hoarding all the wealth and like none of us can have it. And so if we can change that, that's the ultimate solution. And honestly, we need free housing. Housing is a human right. We shouldn't even be here having this podcast.
Well, we should be talking about
Something
something
else.
fun.
Yeah. Sure, we can have a podcast, but this shouldn't be a topic of discussion. Like this shouldn't even be a thought,
Well, there's socialized housing, there's housing first, there's all these open things, there's these perverse profit motives, not just at shelters, but with landlords, right?
Mhm.
But if I call let's say I call my rep, and are they still even talking about rent control or tenants' rights or homeless rights?
That's a good question. I'm just starting to get into a lot of this. We put like a homeless bill of rights up, but it turns out that it got whittled down and it doesn't really offer that much protection beyond what a normal person would get anyway.
Mhm.
I'm sorry, what was the question again?
Well, just like if I call up
Yeah.
Emily Devendorf, what do I say? Like pass Bill of Rights or
Oh.
pass?
Yeah, so like right now we're trying to like Governor Whitmer, for example, she didn't allocate any more money for transitional housing this year. It hasn't changed for the past 3 years, even though the cost of housing has certainly gone up, right?
Mhm.
And homelessness hasn't decreased at all. So we're not keeping up with the needs. So like you could even be that simple, like, can we have more money for transitional housing? Can we have more money for vouchers?
Well, if she doesn't shape up, she's going to be evicted at the end of the year. Well, that's true because her term's up,
Yeah.
and maybe we won't vote for her next aspiration. So maybe she'll become couch to couch for
Couch
a
to
little while. What about city council? Anything local?
We have a strong mayor system, so there's not a lot that the city council has a lot of control over. So I'm not sure what could really be done there because it ultimately comes down to Andy Shore, and I haven't really seen good things out of him.
Why do you think people don't like Andy Shore?
I think he's a Republican in disguise. Sort of.
Give me some knuckles on that.
Yeah.
I have been thinking about that all day.
But why? What are the things?
Do you want to say why?
You can go ahead.
Because I had to look up where the origin of left and right came from a few weeks ago. And it's the people on the left of the room felt one way, the people on the right side of the room felt the other way. The people on the left side of the room thought that the system is broken and we need to change the system to help take care of everybody. The people on the right side of the room felt like the system's just fine and it's that person that's broken. And if they just fix themselves, then they would be okay. So when I look at our city council's behavior and I think about math and chaos and fractals all the time, and I think, this is exactly what Trump would do. This is exactly what this Republican Congress would do. And, Trump has to go to war because he's treated people like shit for so long. Andy has to spend $10,000 to protect his city hall to open up as a warming shelter because he's treated people like shit for a long time. So I think that most of our city council, our chamber of commerce, a lot of people in this city are really right thinking and think that there's a lot of broken people, like people are deficits.
And that's true. Like the prejudice against the homeless population in particular, it really transcends both the right and the left. But it just seems to be, it's a little bit worse on the right, or maybe a lot worse, but it's pretty bad on the left as well. And unlike Democrats, there's.
See, explain that a little bit more. And let's talk to the people on the left or the liberals or the neoliberals or whatever they are.
I see them endorsing the same stereotypes. Hey, you're out there because you're lazy, you're not getting a job, personal responsibility. And it goes back to that thing is they don't want to help. And if they can justify their indifference to your suffering by saying you're the problem, then that works for them. It works really nicely. And it's an unconscious process. It's not anything that they think about. It's really automatic. So
do you think that what we grew up as the American dream was, get out there and work hard and you can be, we can't all be famous football players, right?
Well, I was just going to share, I think that's part of, right, we have this dominant narrative that anyone who isn't either successful or even able to meet their basic needs, right, that it's a flaw on you, but that's a narrative that we create to maintain the status quo that has been structured by the people who are benefiting from the status quo, right? So it comes across like it's so crazy, but it's because we have been fed that for so long so that they can perpetuate what's happening.
I totally agree with that. That's exactly what's going on.
So I always say the status quo never favors the oppressed because they are the oppressors. They are living within the system.
I think it's Mickey Kendall that had a quote that was, "No one has ever been freed from oppression by asking nicely."
Uh-oh. We're not going to ask nicely?
You just can't.
Yeah.
I was just going to throw out, I know, speaking of some of the local approaches to impact housing, one of the discriminatory policies that have been in existence a long time is related to single family zoning. And my husband has taught me a lot about this, why that is a discriminatory policy. And it is often used where you can only have single family homes, no duplexes, no apartments, that areas are zoned that way. And it keeps out people who couldn't afford to live there otherwise, right? If you have fewer options available in that area, that makes those properties more valuable. And so just as I have begun to study that policy a little bit and just see the legacy that has created and continues today to make the availability of more affordable housing available.
We were looking at code a lot, or we do look at code a lot.
Yeah.
And, the ordinance where no more than 2 families can live in a house. Right. So like the 3 of us who are not related, we couldn't live in a house together because, and right, you look at it like that, like what the hell, why not?
Yep.
But it's because what if we were 3 guys, right? And what if you and I were partners? Well, there's a good rule to keep queer people out of your neighborhood, or to keep them from getting fair housing, or a lot of stereotypes about how immigrants or refugees or whatever will come and all live together in the house.
Yep.
So it was all racist and homophobic and all of that.
And it's
No.
classist, right?
Mhm.
Because that's a
Yeah.
major driver too.
Really the only neighborhoods I've ever enjoyed living in are the poor neighborhoods. It's where all the fun is. It's where all the action is. It's where all the hood rat shit is. That's what I like to do. But I've said that for a long time, guys. What else? So really, I think you're saying, we've got to put a lot of pressure on our politicians
Sure.
and get talking to them. What are your thoughts on how effective that's really been?
I mean, that's a good question. I have to take a step back and think about that. But I guess if you're going to do it, make it effective, you got to do it with numbers.
And do we do it? We got to vote them out.
You got to vote them out. You've
we
got to
gotta
get new
recall-
people in. Yeah, I mean, that's ultimately a very good point too, is we need to get people who care about what's going on in the first place. Because some of these people, they just care about their donors and what do their donors want? What do the rich people want? So
That sounded like a call to action to me.
yeah.
Do you think if we could show voting records versus donations that they've received and followed the money, that we should expose that?
I think that'd be one good thing to do.
Okay,
Yeah, for sure.
that's good to know. Because we might have something up our sleeve. Go ahead.
I was just going to say the other thing I heard Chantel say is that we all need to play a part in what these changes that truly do have an impact on housing locally, to be active to make those changes. And I know we're going to discuss a couple items for our call to action, but it is all of our responsibility
Mhm.
to be part of addressing this problem.
All right. Should we go into the call to action?
Sure.
It would have been great if the phone would have rang right when we
Right
said
now,
call to
'cause you could have
Call to
said-
action.
So I'll start just real quick.
Great.
We do publish this video and other links and references on our website and in the comments underneath the post. And there's two things that I want to point out that I think are important. The under the call to action section, we have a show up calendar, which lists like meetings that Rennes Too Damn High is having, or the city council, and maybe they're talking about a data center, or they're talking about the Mod Pods or whatever. And that's something to go to kind of see how you can get involved and come have your voice. The other thing we have is a speak up page, which is, how do I get a hold of my rep? How do I get a hold of my city council member? And I did something that you guys are gonna all love on this page. I took all of the email addresses from city council and pulled them out one at a time in a very tedious process and put them on one list, so you can press one button and email them all. Because that City of Lansing website does not make it easy for you to communicate with our officials at all. Quit throwing sand in our way. You're already opaque, you're already inefficient, and you're already making it too difficult to participate in democracy. It almost seems like it's on purpose.
Mhm.
So those are two calls to action you can do from just generally every time. What do you think people should do?
I agree with that. Kind of put me on the spot for a minute.
I'll go. I'll be happy to go next. I just want to maybe encourage people a little to build on what you said, Jerry, but to actually look up the rent is too damn high, the tenants union, and get a better sense of what they're working on and what that is. Because I think tenants unions are fairly uncommon in a lot of places. So the fact that we have one that's so active here, I think is really valuable. So urge folks who are not familiar with the work that they do, to take a moment to look up The Rent is Too Damn High in Lansing. And I would add, as a potential call to action, is to get a sense locally for you what if your zoning code is discriminatory or not, because that is something that you can get involved in very easily, and that we can build a campaign around to ask for those things, and to know for yourself whether you live in a community that is, you know, actively restricting people from living there because it is exclusive. So check it out for yourself, so you know if you need to make a change.
Do you think we have an international audience already? Because I think if they live in America, they live in a community that.
Probably. I think some are working on it. But yes, that's a good point, Jerry. Well, then everyone will be able to come and say it.
About it,
No,
but
I
I
hear
think
you.
that the redlining, there are 90-year-old policies
Yep.
that affect our housing in food deserts and
Yep.
childcare deserts, apartheids, not deserts.
Mhm.
Deserts are natural.
Which is kind of why I was saying that, right? Be aware. A lot of that stuff is there, and it's sort of because people don't enforce it, it's hidden in the background. And let's not try to shy away from the past that we've all, you know, been complicit in our own ways in creating.
And I've said a lot of things about calling like your reps and that, and so I don't want to be redundant with that. But one thing to think about too is that, like, you know, you can't solve everything by calling your reps through political action. And I was talking to one member of our union, and one idea is like, okay, you know, all these rich bastards have all the money. What are we going to do? Well, maybe if we could get together and buy some land where we could build something, and then all of us who can't afford anything can go live there and live in dignity. So I think that we need to explore other options like that, because, you know,
Yes.
that would be probably a really important part of the solution as well. How are we going to get a hold of money so that we who don't have the money can buy a place to live, so we can live in peace and dignity and be safe?
Now you're talking my language, because cooperative ownership is super important. Start to look for it. Look for what the Brent Forsberg and the Land Trust are doing at the corner of Holmes and Pleasant Grove with the old Malcolm X School. Community members are going to be able to invest in that. But the
Okay.
other thing is, start to look for the trend that's now happening all over the country, but we are definitely going to make this happen more and more in Lansing, is community investment trusts, where you do go in and collectively buy buildings and properties and houses and all of that. Because even if we solve this problem, we're only one person away from saying, get the hell off our property.
Yeah.
So we need to start owning stuff. We need sovereignty.
Mhm.
We can't go and fix all these problems that are on other people's lands that they stole,
Mhm.
and expect that our solutions are going to survive. So I love this idea. I'm
Yep.
super excited
Yeah.
about this idea. And you and I should talk about this idea
We
more.
should.
So,
Yeah.
all right. And just whoop their asses once in a while.
Yeah.
Is that what you said too?
No, but I totally agree with that.
All right. No violence,
With love.
with love,
With love.
right?
Would kick their asses.
Tanya's, what is it called? Nonviolent?
Yes.
Is that what it's called?
Yes, non-violent resistance.
Do you want me to cut this from the podcast?
No.
Or I can still be
I feel like
funny?
we've addressed it properly.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
What's
anything-
next? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
What's next for,
I was going
Oh.
to give Chantel last word on anything else that maybe we didn't cover yet that you would like to share. You don't have to have anything, no pressure at
Nothing
all.
comes to mind, but I really like that cooperative housing. Let's buy some land together, you know?
Mhm. And let's do it a little bit at a time.
Yep.
But if we start having land, then we can start doing what we want to do within reason,
Yep.
and build the future that we want to build. We don't need the government to do everything for us. We don't need you guys who aren't empathetic to be empathetic all of a sudden. We can get some things. We can build our own future, and we can define our own path for what success looks for us and all of these different things. So
Lansing Project 2026, Jerry.
that's what I
Just
think.
sums it
That's
up.
what I think. And worker-owned co-ops.
Yeah.
You know, I'd like to, I really liked what you were saying. Let's teach people the skills that they would need to fix up the red tagged
Mhm.
houses. Let's go cooperatively buy a bunch of red tagged houses,
Mhm.
create a worker-owned co-op for fixing up those houses, move people into the houses, and figure out, you know, if they're going to pay rent, if they don't have to pay rent, maybe we get some HUD money or whatever, and start building up a treasury to buy the next house and the next house and the next house until we as a community own the houses. Right?
Beautiful.
All right. So
What's next, Jerry?
next week, we are going to stick with housing.
Okay.
I have a surprise, even for you, I think, of who our guests will be. I want to just confirm it one more time with them, but we're going to have another great guest that I think will be able to talk about City Council a little bit better than we've talked about them.
Mhm.
So,
Interesting.
and I think they'll also announce some of the things that they're going to do with tenants' rights and
All right.
proposing and putting that out on the table. So sorry, I want to make sure it's 100%
teaser.
for real. Yeah, it's a teaser.
Yeah.
So you'll have to watch next week to see.
Yeah, that's next
So-
week to see.
With that said, I think we put episode number 2 in the books, and our very first guest that we ever have is written in the history book is Chantel, and
Chantel.
we really, really appreciate you.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
nobody knows the problems better than people that are right there, seeing them, feeling them, experiencing them. And I don't care. I'm sorry. I'm impressed by all your PhDs and your published writing and all of that too. But what I was going to say is, I don't care if you have a PhD or some college education. If your hands haven't gotten dirty, then you probably don't really understand the issue. But
It's
you
true.
got dirty hands and a PhD, so I'm keep knuckling you. All right. Love y'all. Anything
Bye,
else?
everybody.
Nope. Thanks for
All right.
having me.
You're welcome. Thanks for being here. See y'all later. Bye-bye.